The galaxy reacts. Captain Bei Su-jin woke from cryosleep with ice in her lungs and fire in her blood. The UES Pathfinder had jumped blindly, programmed to emerge somewhere far from Council space. As her vision cleared, she saw stars through the viewport. Unfamiliar constellations. They had made it. Status report, she croaked. Her AI companion, a system humanity had built from reverse-engineered Council technology, responded immediately. We have emerged in the outer rim, approximately 40,000 light-years from Earth. No Council vessels detected. Local system contains one inhabited world. Su-jin pulled herself to the command chair, fighting the nausea from cryo-sleep. What kind of inhabitants? Scanning. Technology level, pre-industrial. Species classification unknown. They appear to be herbivorous bipeds. No weapons detected beyond simple tools. The Trelawney, Su-jin said, remembering the intelligence reports. A peaceful species that the Council allowed to develop naturally, with minimal interference. They're not Council members? Negative. Records indicate they pay tribute to the Council but have no representation or protection. Su-jin made a decision. Take us down. Slowly. I don't want to scare them. The Pathfinder descended through the atmosphere of the planet the locals called Trell. The world was beautiful. All green fields and blue oceans with small settlements scattered across the landscape. Su-jin landed in an open area near one of the larger villages and waited. It didn't take long. The Trelawney approached cautiously, their large eyes wide with fear and curiosity. They stood about 2 meters tall, covered in soft fur that ranged from silver to deep brown. Their hands had 6 fingers, and they moved with a grace that spoke of a species that had never known predators. Su-jin stepped out of her ship alone, unarmed, her hands visible and empty. She had studied first contact protocols extensively. The key was to appear non-threatening. One of the Trelawney stepped forward. Through her translator, Su-jin heard a voice like wind chimes. Sky Traveler, you are not like the collectors who come for tribute. Collectors? Su-jin asked. The Council's agents. They come every cycle and take our food, our crafts, our resources. They say it is payment for protection, but we see no benefit. Only loss. Su-jin felt anger stir in her chest. The Council portrayed themselves as benevolent shepherds of civilization. But here on the edges, they were just another empire extracting wealth from the weak. I'm not with the Council, she said. I'm human. My people, we were imprisoned by the Council. We broke free. Now we're looking for friends. The Trelawney leader tilted his head. Friends? What would this friendship entail? Trade. Protection, if you want it. Knowledge sharing. We have technology that could help your people, and you have crops and materials we need. But it would be a fair exchange. No tribute. No taking without giving back. The Trelawney were silent for a long moment. Then the leader made a gesture that Su-jin's translator interpreted as cautious hope. This sounds too good to be true. Why would you offer such things? Because we know what it's like to be controlled, Su-jin said simply. And we don't want to become what we fought against. 3,000 light-years away, a merchant named Jexith was having a very different kind of first contact. He was a Zilvari, a species of reptilian traders who operated on the fringes of Council space. His ship, the Prophet's Edge, was old and patched together from a dozen different technologies. He made his living finding rare goods and selling them where they fetched the best price. He had just received a distress beacon from an unknown ship and was debating whether to investigate. Distress beacons were often traps set by pirates, but they could also lead to salvage opportunities or grateful survivors willing to pay for rescue. Greed won over caution, as it usually did. Jexith altered course and found the source, a small vessel unlike anything in his databases. It was damaged, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, but there were life signs aboard. He docked carefully and entered through the airlock. Inside, he found 2 humans working frantically to patch the holes in their ship. They looked up as he entered, and he saw something in their eyes that made him freeze. They weren't afraid. They were evaluating him, calculating whether he was a threat or an opportunity. You're not Council, one of them said. A female, though Jexith wasn't entirely sure. Human gender markers were subtle. No, independent merchant. You're the humans everyone is talking about? Word travels fast, the other human said. Male, Jexith thought. Yeah, we're human. Our ship got damaged in the jump. We need repairs. I could repair your ship, Jexith said slowly. For a price. We don't have council currency, the female said. No, but you have something more valuable. Information. The whole galaxy is buzzing about what happened at Earth. The council sent their largest fleet in history and lost over 300 ships before you broke through. That's unprecedented. I want the real story. The humans exchanged glances. Then the male shrugged. Sure, help us fix our ship and we'll tell you everything. But I warn you, the truth is better than the rumors. Over the next day, as Jexith worked on their ship, the humans told him their story. About the quarantine, the message they sent, the battle they fought knowing they would lose. About Captain Choi Mina and the 100 ships that sacrificed themselves so 20 could escape. We're not monsters, the female, who said her name was Lieutenant Kang Hyejin, told him. But we're also not going to live in a cage. The council was so afraid of what we might do that they never gave us a chance to prove what we could be. And what could you be? Jexith asked. Friends, allies, trading partners. We have technology that could help species like yours, and we're willing to share if you're willing to work with us. Jexith thought about this. The council controlled most trade routes, took taxes from every transaction, and enforced regulations that made independent merchants like him struggle constantly. The idea of an alternative was tempting. What do you need? He asked. Right now? Safe places to hide, fuel, parts, information about which systems might be sympathetic to us. Eventually we'll need more. A network of traders who can move supplies and messages without the council knowing. That's asking a lot. We're offering a lot. Imagine a galaxy where the council doesn't control everything. Where small traders like you don't have to pay bribes and tribute just to survive. That's what we're fighting for. Jexith made a decision. I know others. Merchants, explorers, people who operate outside council space. I'll spread the word. But I can't promise anything. That's all we ask. On a neutral trading station called Haven's Rest, Dr. Han Jiwoo established humanity's first embassy. The station floated between 3 star systems, a place where species came to trade and negotiate without council oversight. It was perfect for her purposes. She rented a small space and put up a simple sign, Human Embassy. All species welcome. The first visitors came out of curiosity. Humans were the subject of intense gossip across the galaxy. Some said they were demons who had destroyed a council fleet. Others claimed they were primitive savages who got lucky. Jiwoo set out to tell the truth. She showed them recordings from Earth. Art, music, literature. She explained human history, not hiding the wars and atrocities but also showing the achievements and beauty. She told them about the quarantine and asked a simple question. Would you accept being imprisoned for crimes you might commit? Many species left thoughtful. Some left angry at the council for keeping this from them. A few left frightened, still believing humans were too dangerous. But word spread. One visitor, an elderly scholar from the Kel-3 species, stayed for hours looking at human art. This painting, he said, pointing to a reproduction of Starry Night. The artist was tormented, yes? I can feel the pain in the brushstrokes. Vincent van Gogh, Jiwoo said. He suffered from mental illness and died young. But he created beauty despite his pain. That's very human. We carry darkness, but we create light. The scholar's tentacles quivered, and what Jiwoo had learned was a Kel-3 gesture of respect. The council fears your darkness. Perhaps they should fear your light instead. On Earth, what remained of humanity's defense fleet regrouped. Admiral Kwan had survived the battle, though Geneva Station had taken heavy damage. The council fleet had reached Earth, but surprisingly, had not implemented Protocol Terminus. They're waiting, Taman told the Emergency War Council. They know ships escaped. They're using Earth as bait, hoping the runners will try to come back. Will they? Someone asked. Some will try. But that's not the plan. The runners have orders to establish humanity elsewhere. If Earth falls, we survive. That's the priority. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from all over the galaxy. The runners have made contact with dozens of species. Some are hostile, but many are interested in talking. Taemin felt something that might have been hope. Good, that's good. Keep the channels open. Let them know we're still here, still fighting. In the darkness between stars, 20 human ships were changing the galaxy one conversation at a time. Some formed trade agreements. Others shared technology. A few found species that had also suffered under council rule and began building alliances. Jexith kept his word. He spread the message through the merchant networks. Humans were looking for friends and they were willing to pay fair prices for help. First contact, the Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of angry stars. 10,000 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, materialized at the edge of the solar system in perfect formation. High Commander Draction watched from his flagship, the Eternal Victory, as his sensors swept the system ahead. "Scan for human vessels," he ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with." His tactical officer, a young Kryn named Thax, studied the displays. "Commander, I'm detecting 200 contacts. Small craft arranged in a defensive formation near the outer planets." Draction felt his mandibles click in what might have been amusement. 200. They're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Perhaps both, Commander. Open a channel to the human fleet. Let's see if they'll surrender before we have to destroy them. On the bridge of the UES Indomitable, Captain Choi Minna watched the Council fleet appear on her screens. The sheer size of it was breathtaking. She had studied the projections, reviewed the intelligence reports, but seeing it in person was different. This was the combined military might of 1,000 civilizations, all focused on crushing one small planet. "Captain, incoming transmission," her communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." High Commander Draction appeared, his insectoid form towering even through the holographic display. When he spoke, the translation matrix made his voice sound cold and metallic. "Human vessels. You're in violation of Galactic Council law. Your species has been classified as a Category 5 threat. By order of the Council, your solar system has been marked for Protocol Terminus. This is your only chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to designated holding areas. Comply, and your species may be allowed to continue under strict supervision." Minna looked at her crew. Lee Jungi gave her a small nod. The weapons officer cracked his knuckles. Nobody said a word, but their answer was clear. She activated her own transmission. "High Commander Draction, I'm Captain Choi Minna of the United Earthship Indomitable. On behalf of humanity, I have a response to your offer." She let the pause stretch, imagining the commander waiting, expecting negotiation or pleas. "Go to hell." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "All ships, battle stations, tactical, execute Plan Delta. Let's show them what they're dealing with." Draction stared at the blank screen where the human captain had been. In 600 years of military service, no one had ever dismissed him so bluntly. He felt his combat instincts surge, the old warrior fury that his species had evolved over millions of years. "All ships, weapons free, destroy them." The Council fleet surged forward, a wall of steel and energy that had never been defeated. And the humans didn't run. They came forward to meet it. The first wave of human ships weren't ships at all. They were drones, thousands of them, each one carrying enough explosive power to damage a Council vessel. They swarmed forward in clouds, moving erratically, making targeting difficult. "Point defense systems," Draction ordered. "Clear them." The Council ships opened fire, and space lit up with energy beams and projectiles. Drones exploded by the hundreds, filling the void with expanding spheres of debris and light. But there were so many of them, and for every 10 destroyed, one got through. A drone impacted on a Council destroyer's hull. The explosion was small, barely enough to scratch the armor. But then another hit, and another, and the small explosions began to add up. "Clever," Draction admitted. "They're using attrition tactics, no matter. Continue forward." Behind the drone wave, the human warships came. They didn't fly in neat formations like Council vessels. They scattered, breaking into small groups that moved independently. Minna led her squadron of 20 ships into the heart of the Council formation. "Target their sensor arrays," she ordered. "Make them blind." The human ships opened fire. Their weapons were primitive compared to Council technology, but they were used with surgical precision. Every shot targeted weak points, sensor nodes, communication arrays, weapon cooling systems. They weren't trying to destroy the Council ships. They were trying to cripple them. Lee Jungi coordinated the attack from his station, his fingers dancing across controls. "Captain, I'm linking our targeting computers with Squadrons 3 and 7. If we synchronize fire, we can overload their shields." "Do it." 3 human ships fired simultaneously at a Council cruiser. The shields held for a moment, flickering under the assault, then failed. The 4th shot punched through, destroying the ship's main engine. The cruiser spun out of formation, alive but useless. "One down," Minna said. 4,999 to go. On the Eternal Victory, Thax reported the situation. "Commander, we've lost 57 ships. Not destroyed, but disabled." Their weapons are— I can see what their weapons are, Draxion interrupted. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to delay us. But why? He pulled up the tactical display and saw it immediately. While the human fleet engaged his forward elements, 20 ships were breaking away from the main battle, accelerating toward the edge of the engagement zone. They're trying to escape, he realized. All ships redirect fire. Those 20 vessels cannot be allowed to leave this system. But the human fleet had anticipated this. As the Council ships shifted to intercept the runners, the remaining human vessels intensified their attack. They threw themselves into suicidal runs, ramming damaged Council ships, detonating their own reactors next to enemy formations, doing anything and everything to keep the Council's attention divided. Mina saw her opportunity. All power to engines. We're going through. Captain, that's the middle of their formation, Jungi protested. Exactly. They won't expect it. The Indomitable accelerated, driving straight into the densest part of the Council fleet. Energy beams scored her hull. Missiles exploded against her shields. But she kept going, and 4 other human ships followed in her wake. Target their flagship, Mina ordered. I'm tired of looking at that bug. The 5 human ships concentrated their fire on the Eternal Victory. Draxion felt his ship shudder under the assault. Damage reports flooded in. The humans were actually hurting him. Return fire! Kill them! But the humans weren't there anymore. They had fired and moved, already racing toward a new target. They fought like their drones had, impossible to pin down, always moving, never where you expected them to be, and they kept talking. Draxion could hear their communications, not encrypted, broadcast openly. They joked with each other. They sang songs. When one ship was destroyed, the others would shout the pilot's name like it was a badge of honor. They're insane, Thax whispered. No, Draxion said slowly. They're warriors. True warriors. They know they can't win, but they're fighting anyway. A human destroyer, its hull burning and shields failed, drove itself directly into a Council battleship. The explosion tore both ships apart. Humans are committed to breakthrough, Thax reported. 72 of their ships destroyed, 23 more critically damaged. But Commander, the 20 runners are approaching jump distance. Draxion made a decision. All ships ignore the main force. Stop those runners, whatever the cost. 1,000 Council ships broke formation and raced after the escaping human vessels. The runners had a head start, but the Council ships were faster. The gap began to close. Mina saw what was happening and felt her heart sink. They weren't going to make it. All remaining ships, she broadcast. New plan. We're buying them time. Captain, Jungi started. That's an order. All ships follow the Indomitable. She turned her ship around and accelerated back toward the Council fleet. 100 human vessels, damaged and exhausted, turned with her. They flew directly at the 1,000 ships pursuing the runners. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. But nobody hesitated. The two forces collided in a maelstrom of fire and metal. Human ships exploded by the dozens, but each one took enemies with them. They detonated their reactors. They rammed. They fired until their weapons melted and then used the burning wreckage of their ships as weapons. Colonel Nam Da-yoon, commanding a marine assault ship, broadcast one last message as her ship broke apart. Tell them we were here. Tell them we fought. Mina saw the moment when the runners reached safe distance. 20 human ships jumped to faster than light, scattering in 20 different directions, carrying humanity into the galaxy. We did it, she whispered. Then a Council energy beam caught the Indomitable, and her world became fire. Draxion watched the last human ship explode, and felt something he hadn't expected: respect. They had lost. Every ship destroyed, thousands of humans dead. But they had accomplished their mission. 20 ships had escaped, Commander, Thax said quietly. What do we do now? Draxion looked at the solar system ahead, at the planet Earth visible in the distance. Protocol Terminus called for its complete sterilization, but as he gave the order to advance, he wondered if it even mattered anymore. The humans were loose in the galaxy, and they had just proven they would fight to the last to stay free. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Humanity prepares. Captain Choi Mina floated in the observation bubble of the U.S. Indomitable, watching her crew run final checks on systems that weren't supposed to exist. The ship stretched out below her, all sharp angles and aggressive design. Nothing like the elegant curves of the civilian vessels that docked at Earth's orbital stations. This was a warship, built for one purpose only: to fight aliens that most of humanity didn't even know existed. Her communicator buzzed. "Captain, Admiral Kwan is requesting a secure channel." "Put him through." Taemin's face appeared on her display and he looked tired. "How's our girl?" Mina smiled despite the tension. "The Indomitable is ready. All systems are green. The crew is as prepared as they'll ever be for something like this." "Good. Because our long-range sensors just detected something. A fleet, massive, heading toward us. They'll be here in 48 hours. Mina felt her stomach drop. "Protocol terminus?" "That's our assessment. They're not coming to talk, Mina. They're coming to end us." She looked at her ship again, at the weapon systems and armor plating and all the technology they had built in secret. It had seemed like enough when they were preparing for a hypothetical threat. Now that the threat was real and coming fast, it felt impossibly small. "How many ships do we have ready?" she asked. 200. Not all of them are fully equipped, but they can fly and fight. Against 10,000 council vessels, those aren't good odds. They never are. That's why they're called humans. Taemin laughed, a short bark of sound that carried no humor. "I'm activating the emergency broadcast. The world needs to know what's coming. No more secrets." 12 hours later, every screen on Earth showed the same image. Admiral Kwan standing in the Geneva Command Center, with Earth visible through the window behind him. His uniform was crisp, his face calm, but his words shook civilization to its core. "People of Earth, I need to tell you something that will sound impossible. We are not alone in the universe. There is a vast civilization out there. Thousands of species united under something called the Galactic Council. For 200 years they have been watching us. And for 200 years they have kept us prisoner in our own solar system, afraid of what we might become." He paused, letting the words sink in. Around the world, people stopped what they were doing. Traffic halted. Factories went silent. Everyone watched. Yesterday, we sent them a message. We told them we're coming. We're breaking free of the cage they built around us. And now they're sending a fleet to destroy us before we can escape. They'll be here in less than 2 days. Another pause. Mina, watching from the Indomitable, could imagine the chaos erupting across the planet. But here's what they don't know. We've been preparing. 50 years ago, our scientists discovered the containment field. We've been studying it, testing it, and building weapons to break through it. The military project I've commanded has resulted in 200 warships, thousands of trained soldiers, and technology that combines our engineering with reverse-engineered alien systems. We're not helpless. We're not going to surrender. We're going to fight. The broadcast ended with a simple message. Humanity stands. Engineer Yoon Sung-ho barely noticed the broadcast. He was 3 levels deep in an asteroid facility in the belt, surrounded by the machine that might save them all. The breakthrough drive hummed around him, a tangle of alien technology and human innovation that shouldn't work but did. His assistant, a young woman named Park Soo-bin, floated over with a tablet. "The final tests are complete. The drive is stable." "Stable?" Sung-ho laughed. "Soo-bin, this thing violates at least 4 laws of physics that we know of. Stable is a generous word, but it works? Oh, it works. We can jump to faster than light speeds without using the Council's relay network. We can go anywhere in the galaxy and they can't track us. That's the key. Even if they destroy Earth, if just a few of our ships escape, humanity survives. We spread out, find new worlds, and they'll never be able to contain us again." Soo-bin looked worried. "That's a lot of ifs. Welcome to being human. We specialize in impossible odds." On Earth, Colonel Nam Da-yoon stood before 3,000 soldiers in the Orbital Defense Marines training facility. They were young, most of them, born into a world that thought it was alone. Now they were being asked to fight for a species they'd never met, against odds that no sane person would accept. "Listen up," she said, her voice echoing across the hangar. "You've all seen the broadcast. You know what's coming. I'm not going to lie to you. Most of us probably won't survive this. The Council has better ships, better weapons, and thousands of years of experience. But they have one critical weakness." She paused, meeting eyes across the crowd. "They've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall. They think we're dangerous because we're violent. They're wrong. We're dangerous because we don't know how to quit. When they knock us down, we get back up. When they think they've won, we find a new way to fight. That's what we do. That's who we are." A soldier raised his hand. "Colonel, what if we lose? Then we lose fighting. But here's the thing about humanity. We've faced extinction before. Ice ages, plagues, world wars. We've looked death in the face again and again. And we're still here. So maybe we lose this battle. Maybe they destroy our fleet and break through our defenses. But if even one ship escapes, if even one human survives, this isn't over. Because we'll rebuild, and we'll come back. And we'll keep coming back until either we're free or we're dead. There's no middle ground with us. The soldiers cheered, and Dawn felt something fierce and proud burn in her chest. These were her people. Humanity. Impossible, stubborn, beautiful humanity. Back on the Indomitable, Minna assembled her senior officers. The bridge was cramped, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Every surface held a purpose. Every system had a backup and a backup for the backup. Here's the situation, she said, pulling up tactical displays. The Council fleet will drop out of FTL at the edge of our solar system. They'll expect to find primitive ships and maybe some orbital defenses. Instead, we're going to hit them with everything we have. Her tactical officer, Lee Jun-gi, studied the projections. Captain, even with surprise on our side, the numbers are brutal. 10,000 to 200. That's 50 to 1 odds. Which means each of us needs to take out 50 of them. I've had worse odds. When? Never, but I'm optimistic. The bridge crew laughed nervously, and Minna felt some of the tension ease. Good. They needed to stay loose, stay thinking. Fear made you predictable, and predictable got you killed. Our advantage is that we fight dirty, she continued. Council species follow rules. They have honor codes and combat traditions. We don't. We'll use every trick we can think of. Drones, mines, false signatures, suicide runs if necessary. We make them pay for every meter of space. And most importantly, we create an opening. An opening for what? Jun-gi asked. For 20 ships to break through and jump to FTL. Those ships carry our best scientists, engineers, and diplomats. They'll scatter across the galaxy, make contact with other species, tell them what the Council did to us. They'll ensure that even if Earth falls, humanity survives. She looked around the bridge at faces that were young and old, scared and determined, all of them human. Admiral Kwan gave us a motto. He said to think of it when things get hard. When you're tired, when you're scared, when death is coming and you want to run. She smiled. They tried to cage us. They forgot what happens when you corner a predator. The crew echoed the words back to her, and Minna felt something settle in her bones. This was it. The moment humanity had been racing toward since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Now they knew. And now they were going to show the galaxy exactly what humans were made of. The fleet launched 12 hours before the Council arrived, 200 ships rising from hidden facilities across the solar system. They formed up in the Kuiper Belt, a defensive line between Earth and the incoming threat. Admiral Kwan watched them go from Geneva Station, and he felt pride mix with sorrow. So many good people, flying toward probable death because they refused to live in a cage. But that was humanity, always reaching, always fighting, always refusing to accept that something was impossible. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The Council's fear. The Galactic Council chamber existed in a space between spaces, a quantum construct where representatives from 1,000 worlds could meet without ever leaving their home systems. Ambassador Velthar floated in his designated position, his energy form pulsing with colors that hadn't been named in human languages. He had served on the Council for 600 years, and in all that time, he had never felt fear quite like this. The message hung in the center of the chamber, projected in letters of light that seemed to burn against the darkness. 2 words, simple, terrifying. We're coming. High Commander Draxion was the first to speak. His voice clicked and buzzed through the translation matrix, carrying the weight of a species that had evolved from hive warriors. This is an act of war. We should respond with overwhelming force immediately. Counselor Lysara rippled in disagreement, her aquatic form shifting through shades of blue and silver. Her telepathic voice touched everyone's mind at once, cool and measured. We do not know what they are capable of. This could be bravado from a species that only recently discovered the relay network. Or it could be a promise, Velthar said quietly. We need to review the files. All of them. Every observation we've made of the humans since we discovered them. The chamber dimmed and holographic projections filled the space. Earth appeared first, a blue marble spinning in the darkness. Then came the images that had convinced the Council to implement the quarantine 2 centuries ago. The first recordings showed human warfare, not the clean, ritualized combat of the Kryn, where battles followed strict rules and ceased at sunset. Not the economic competitions the Zilvari called war, where the losers simply paid tribute. This was something else entirely. The humans fought with everything they had. They turned their cities into fortresses. They weaponized their weather, their biology, their very atoms. When one weapon failed, they invented another. When they ran out of soldiers, they taught their children to fight. When they faced extinction, they didn't surrender. They adapted. World War III. Velthar narrated as the images played. We were conducting routine surveys of developing species when we discovered Earth. We arrived in the middle of their most devastating conflict. Over 2 billion casualties. They used nuclear weapons, biological agents, and technologies they barely understood. They poisoned their own planet in their determination to win. Draction clicked in approval. Effective warriors. That is precisely why they must remain contained. You don't understand, Velthar said. Watch what happens next. The projection jumped forward 50 years. Earth was green again. The humans had healed their world. Cities rose from the ashes, larger and more beautiful than before. They hadn't just survived their self-inflicted apocalypse. They had learned from it. They recovered in 50 years, Lysara observed. Most species take centuries to rebuild after such devastation. Some never recover at all. And look at what they built, Velthar continued. The projection showed the Geneva orbital station, the Mars colonies, the mining operations in the asteroid belt. They didn't just rebuild, they expanded. They reached for space with the same determination they showed in war. They're relentless, the chamber filled with more data. Council observers had compiled an extensive file on human behavior. And as the information scrolled past, the representatives grew quieter. Humans were the only known species that bonded with apex predators as companions. They kept wolves in their homes and called them friends. They shared their food with creatures that could kill them. Humans were persistence hunters. They would track prey for days, weeks if necessary, never stopping until they caught what they were chasing. On Earth, there were stories of humans who had chased animals until the animals died of exhaustion. Humans turned everything into weapons. They could kill with tools designed for farming, healing, or communication. They had once weaponized a disease to fight other diseases. They had turned atoms into bombs and bacteria into medicine. But perhaps most terrifying was their culture. Humans created art about their own extinction. They wrote stories where they faced aliens, demons, gods, and themselves. And in most of these stories, humanity won. They dreamed of fighting impossible battles and never considered that they might be the ones who should surrender. They have a saying, Velthar said, rage against the dying of the light. It's from one of their poems. They don't accept death gracefully.
They fight it.
They fight everything. Draction was silent for a moment. Why did we not eliminate them when we had the chance? Because we are not monsters, Lysara said sharply. They had done nothing to us. We cannot destroy a species for what they might do. So we caged them instead, Velthar said. We built the containment field and watched them grow, always thinking we could control them. We told ourselves it was for their own good, that we were protecting them from a galaxy they weren't ready for. But that was a lie. We were protecting ourselves from them. The projection changed again. This time it showed the containment field, the massive network of energy barriers and dead zones that surrounded Earth's solar system. It was a marvel of Council technology, invisible and impenetrable, or at least it had been. The field is failing, Velthar announced. The chamber erupted in voices. Draction's clicking became rapid and sharp. Lysara's colors flashed with alarm. Representatives from a dozen species demanded explanations. For the past 3 years, we've detected fluctuations in the barrier, Velthar continued. We thought it was natural degradation. The field was designed to last 5 centuries, and it's only been 2. But we were wrong. The humans have been testing it. They've been sending probes to specific weak points, mapping our defenses. They know Council members. They know about the cage. How long do we have? Lysara asked, unknown. The field could last another year, or it could fail tomorrow. But the message they sent suggests they're not waiting to find out. Draction straightened his massive form. Then we have no choice. We must implement Protocol Terminus. The chamber went silent. Protocol Terminus was the Council's last resort. A plan created for scenarios where a species posed an existential threat to galactic civilization. It had never been used. You're talking about genocide, Lysara said, her colors darkening to angry purples. The complete sterilization of an entire solar system. I'm talking about survival, Draction countered. Look at them. Look at what they are. If we allow them to break free, they will spread across the galaxy like a plague. They will fight us for every world, every resource, and they will never stop, because stopping is not in their nature. They might surprise us, Lysara argued. Perhaps if we approached them with openness, if we explained our fears and gave them a chance to prove themselves. We tried that approach with the Vrax, Draction interrupted. We gave them the benefit of the doubt. Do you remember what happened? Lysara went very still. Everyone remembered the Vrax. They had been a warrior species similar to humans in many ways. The Council had welcomed them, given them technology and trust. Within a century, the Vrax had started a war that killed billions before they were finally stopped. Humans are not the Vrax, Lysara insisted. No, Velthar agreed. They're worse. The Vrax were strong, but they were predictable. They fought with honor and followed rules. Humans don't. They fight to win, whatever it takes. They'll use any advantage, exploit any weakness. And they never ever give up. The vote was called. Out of 1,000 representatives, 743 voted in favor of Protocol Terminus. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. Draction took command immediately. I will assemble the fleet. 10,000 warships, the largest armada in Council history. We will arrive at Earth's solar system and implement the protocol before they can escape. If we move quickly, we can end this before it begins. Velthar watched the preparations begin, and despite his vote, despite his fear, he felt something that might have been regret. The humans had never asked to be caged. They had never threatened the Council. Their only crime was being what they were, stubborn, relentless, and impossible to control. But as he observed the fleet assembling, thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds all united in their fear of one small planet, he wondered if the Council had just made humanity's greatest fear come true. They had given humanity a reason to fight, and if there was one thing the files made clear, it was that humans were very, very good at fighting. The signal, the lights in the command center flickered as another data packet streamed through the alien relay system. Admiral Quan Taman stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the screens with the patience of a man who had spent 30 years waiting for this moment. The Geneva orbital station hummed around him, a monument to human ambition floating above Earth like a steel promise. Dr. Han Jiwoo rushed into the room, her tablet clutched against her chest. Her face was pale and her hands trembled slightly. Taman had known her for 15 years, and he had never seen her rattled. Not when they first discovered the ancient relay network, not when the translation algorithms failed for the 100th time. But now something had changed. Admiral, we need to talk, privately. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Taman nodded and followed her into the observation deck. Earth turned slowly below them, blue and green and utterly unaware of what was coming. Jiwoo activated a privacy field and the gentle hum of the station faded to silence. We decoded it, she said. The signal we picked up 3 days ago. It's not a greeting, Taman. It's a warning. She pulled up the translation on her tablet. The words appeared in simple English, converted from a language that used quantum fluctuations instead of sound. Taman read slowly, his jaw tightening with each line. The message was addressed to all member species of something called the Galactic Council. It informed them that Species 347 Terran, colloquially known as humans, remained under Category 5 quarantine. Any attempt to contact or trade with humans would result in immediate sanctions. The quarantine had been in effect for 203 years. It would remain in effect indefinitely. 200 years, Taman said quietly. They've been watching us for 200 years. There's more. Jiwoo scrolled down. The message includes their reasoning. We're classified as an apex predator species. They believe we're too dangerous to join galactic civilization. Taman felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger, not yet. Just a deep, profound understanding of what this meant. Humanity had been alone in the universe, not because the universe was empty, but because they had been deliberately isolated. Caged. How? He asked. How have they kept us contained? Jiwoo pulled up another file. We've detected anomalies in space around our solar system for decades. Strange dead zones where our probes would malfunction or disappear. We thought it was natural phenomena. It wasn't. There's a containment field around us, Admiral. A barrier we can't see or touch, but it's there. Every ship we've sent beyond a certain point has failed. We thought we were just unlucky with our technology. But we weren't unlucky. We were prisoners. Yes, Taman turned to look at Earth again. Down there, billions of people lived their lives, dreamed their dreams, reached for the stars. And all along, someone had been holding them back. Someone had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be free. What do they fear? He asked. Jiwoo hesitated. The files mention our history, our wars. They observed us during World War III. They saw what we did to each other, and they concluded that we would do the same to them. They're afraid of our violence, our adaptability, our refusal to quit even when we're losing. They think we're monsters, Taman. Are we? I don't know, maybe. But we're also poets and artists and scientists. We're the species that sent golden records into space with music and greetings, just hoping someone would hear. We're complicated. Taman was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a supply ship docked with the station, its thrusters firing in perfect sequence. Human engineering, human determination. They had built all of this while trapped in an invisible cage, never knowing they were confined. Call Captain Park Hyun-woo, Taman said finally, and assemble the First Contact Council. Emergency session. What are you going to do? I'm going to respond to their message. 6 hours later, the council chamber was full. Military officers, scientists, diplomats, and representatives from every major Earth government crowded around the central table. Captain Park Hyun-woo had arrived from the Deep Space Monitoring Fleet, his uniform still smelling faintly of recycled air. Tae-min stood at the head of the table and explained what they had discovered. The room erupted into chaos. Some people shouted in anger. Others sat in stunned silence. A few laughed. The bitter sound of people who had just learned their entire reality was a lie. Order, Tae-min said quietly, but his voice cut through the noise like a blade. Order, please. The room settled. All eyes turned to him. We have a decision to make, he continued. We can attempt to negotiate. We can plead our case. Prove to them that we're not the monsters they think we are. We can beg for acceptance into their galactic civilization. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Or we can send them a different kind of message. What kind of message? Captain Park asked. Tae-min pulled up a blank communication screen. We've been sending peaceful greetings into space for 100 years. We've extended our hand in friendship again and again. And all along, they've been watching us like we're animals in a zoo. They've decided what we are without ever talking to us. They've imprisoned us for crimes we might commit. He typed 2 words on the screen. Simple, direct, unmistakable. We're coming. The room fell silent. Dr. Han Ji-woo stared at the screen, her eyes wide. Tae-min, that's a declaration of intent. They'll see it as a threat. Good. Let them. You'll start a war. They started this war 200 years ago when they put us in a cage. We're just letting them know we've noticed. He turned to face the council. Humanity has never responded well to being told what we can't do. We've climbed every mountain, crossed every ocean, split the atom, and reached the moon because people said it was impossible. This council, these aliens who fear us, they've made the same mistake everyone makes with humanity. They think limits will contain us. They think fear will stop us. Captain Park stood slowly. What's the alternative? If we provoke them, they might decide to eliminate us entirely. Then we fight, Tae-min said simply. We've been preparing for first contact for decades. We have ships, weapons, technology. Maybe it's not as advanced as theirs, but it's ours. And we're very good at fighting against impossible odds. It's kind of our specialty. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would send the message. That night, as the signal broadcast across the alien relay network, Tae-min stood alone in the observation deck. The message was simple. Just 2 words in every language the network supported. But those 2 words would change everything. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, the message appeared. Council chambers fell silent. Military leaders called emergency meetings. An entire civilization that had lived in peace for centuries suddenly realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had tried to cage humanity. Now humanity was coming, and in the vast cold darkness of space, the galaxy held its breath and waited to see what would happen when a species like humanity finally broke free.